So to make sure we get a proper after-action report and a proper lay of the land, we'll go to John McLaughlin, who's the CEO, partner of McLaughlin Associates, Trump's 2024 campaign pollster. John, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well because, I mean, we won decisively, so this is it's a great race. So
I'd say. How far off were you with your polls, John?
The internal campaigns were very accurate. Campaign polls were very accurate. We, Tony Fabrizio, myself, had where we did the internal polls for the 7 of the battleground states, North Carolina and Georgia and Nevada, and Tony had the other 4. And I can tell you that they were within a point everywhere. That we knew it was going to be close, but we thought we would win. We thought we'd sweep all 7 states, and we thought we. In fact, one of my clients, Bruce Blakeman, who's the Nassau County executive, made some prediction on New York City TV that we'd get 312 electoral votes, to which I told him you had insider information. So he speaks regularly to President Trump, and we knew what the internal polls were saying. And fortunately, the American people bore it out.
Yeah, I got a list here of state forecasting accuracy by every organization in the battleground states. And some of them are just, like Cook was 14%. 14%. Siena was 14, CBS 25, Washington Post 33, Echelon 33, Bloomberg 33, CNN 33, QPAC 40. I mean, like way off. Like what are we doing here? So anyway, we don't need to go into that. I'd rather talk about why you think, based off your polling and exit polling, what you've seen. Why do you think Donald Trump won?
Well, Donald Trump won on the issues because when you looked at the polls. And we have our own internal post-election poll that we haven't published. But the majority of voters in the end liked him, and he always had a better job performance than Kamala Harris. So in the 7 battleground states, Trump had a net positive job approval, like 51-48 going into election day, and she was net negative by 10 points, 43 to 53. 53 disapproved. So you had 2/3 of the country thought we were on the wrong track, and you had 53% disapproved of the job she was doing, and Joe Biden was even higher in his disapproval. So every vote we could get was in the path of comparing the performance that he would do as president, where he was talking about issues, and she was talking about political character assassination. All she was doing was running a negative campaign at Trump. And it must have been driving them crazy because when, he went to McDonald's, he was on Joe Rogan, he donned the yellow vest and drove a garbage truck into the rally in Wisconsin. And before that, the Madison Square Garden rally. I mean, he was coming off in the end as not only a better president, that he could do a better job on the top issues of inflation, immigration, crime, ending endless wars, but he also was coming off as more likable. People just liked him better than her.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next question is, whom did he win? Of all the demographic groups, I want to talk about all of them, but this one's pretty interesting. 40% of women under the age of 30 voted for Trump. I think that's a lot, especially when we were told that no woman under 30 would vote for Donald Trump.
Well, he had a strategy that before he even announced his reelection, we had done campaigns with Dick Morris, polls with Dick Morris and John Jordan, where we said, let's go after the 4 legs of the Democrat Party. Let's get more African American voters. Let's get more Hispanic voters. Let's get more suburban voters, suburban women, and let's get more younger voters. And he accomplished that. He was. Wow. Everybody was ridiculing us when he went to the Bronx, when he went to certain neighborhoods. It's like when he even did rallies. When he did the rally in Nassau County, it was, to speak to suburban voters. And we won the suburban voters, and we got a record amount for Republicans among Latino voters at 46%, and we got like 20% with African American men, which was great. And by the way, there's also people of faith, where faith voters he did better with, where you knew he would win. We knew he'd win among Protestant voters, particularly evangelical Christians, but he had a 23-point flip among Catholic voters. Catholic voters were a quarter of the population. They voted for Joe Biden by 5 points last time, 52 to 47. This time they went for Trump, 58 to 40. And we knew we'd lose like the quarter of voters who have no religious affiliation, who were secular, et cetera. but we beat her with these faith voters, and that was important. And the suburban voters, we ended up winning 51-47. So it was really, he really executed. He really was determined. He was focused. He was running a campaign because he cares passionately about the United States. He was worried about what Biden did to dismantle all his policies, whether it was securing the border or raising taxes and triggering inflation. He wants to do better for the average person in America, and he wanted to put those policies back in place. So he had a very good campaign. We had a very good primary campaign where his win was historic, the way he won for a non-incumbent, the way he outpolled like Reagan back in '80, because I used to poll.
Gosh, I forgot about this. I forgot about the primary.
Yeah. Well, the primary
I totally forgot that even happened.
It left us in such a great position because the plan was, after he announced Susie Wiles having to go down to Mar-a-Lago, and I said, and 90% of the voters in the Republican primary disapproved of Joe Biden. And at the time, they were all, these establishment types wanted somebody else. And I was like, you're beating Joe Biden. You've been beating Joe Biden ever since he surrendered Afghanistan. If you run at Joe Biden every day, and you can beat Joe Biden, the Republicans won't look for another choice. It'll be you. And that's what he did. He from the time he visited East Palestine and through all the primaries, his target was Joe Biden. And he did so well, Joe Biden dropped out anyway after he beat him in the debate. They forced him out. But that was the game plan, and it left him. And even though they did the big switch with Kamala Harris, it left him in the proper position to win the race because his job approval had improved, his favorability had improved, and he really was focused and cared about turning things in America around, getting the country back on the right track.
I got a lot more to talk about us, but let's pivot on the Democrats real quick. Listening to their postmortems, they say, well, Kamala didn't have enough time in 109 days or whatever, and we didn't focus enough on identity politics. That's what the New York Times writer said the other day. We need to focus more on identity politics in order to win next time.
I hope they believe that. It's like no, she was just. It was a bad choice. I mean, the problem was they didn't succeed. The problem was Joe Biden had failed, and she was his vice president who failed. And the Democrat Party never admitted that their policies of open borders, higher taxes, more government spending had triggered inflation. They wouldn't admit that their policies of weakness towards our adversaries, whether it was towards Russia or whether it was towards Iran and the enemies of Israel, the terrorists, Hamas and Hezbollah. They didn't realize those policies. They wouldn't admit those policies had failed. And when you look at where Trump was, he was consistent, and really his campaign was the most policy oriented. He had a very specific platform. He had a very specific set of videos he'd put out on lots of issues.
Yes.
And
I'm so glad you brought these videos. I keep seeing these videos. People keep sending me these videos, and I keep seeing them everywhere, of Trump standing in front of the camera, and there's like a dark background, and he has the two flags on each side. And they're all these different policy statements. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. And people are sending them, and I think people are interpreting these videos as if he just made them yesterday.
No.
And I'm glad you brought this up because I'm like, no, I think that I saw that video like 8 months ago.
Yeah.
I think those are like from the primary even. Those are a long time ago. Is that right?
Yes. And he did a lot of them during the primary, and they'd film him at Mar-a-Lago, and he'd go do rallies and do other things. But his rally speeches were very specific, and there were a lot of times he would go on, and the speechwriters were great, Vince Haley and Ross Worthington, and they'd write about, maybe 30, 40 minutes a copy, and he'd go on for 2 hours. And it would just be, but he knew his stuff. I mean, he knows exactly what he wants to do, and it's really shaking up the establishment because he's the first person in American history, the first candidate in American history for president, who ever beat the Republican establishment and then beat the Washington establishment. And he did it twice. He did it in 2016, and he did it this year. And, so he's really a historic figure. There's never been anyone like him in American politics.
Well, that's for sure. I love the fact that he's the only president ever who was not a politician or a general first. He's the first real businessman president. On those four pillars, is it fair to say that if Trump did not make historic gains on Black, Hispanic, suburban women, and young voters, that he would not have won this last election?
It looks pretty good. I mean, he might have found out a way to win, but the electorate was changing. The electorate's still changing, and you have to do, if you want to have a majority coalition, because our plan was not just to win with an electoral majority as we did in 2016 or what we just missed in 2020. Our plan was to win with the majority, and we wanted to crack 50%. And those were in polling memos I sent off to Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita and the team, and we wanted to crack 50%. We knew we could do it, and you know, we were watching the polls in October, and we were almost there, and we got there. And he's the reason, not because, you know, of anything, you know, fancy campaign tactics. It's basically he was on message, and he's a tremendous messenger, and he made it happen. The week before the election, you know, I had a phone call with him, and I told him, I said, you know, we were in the lead, and I said, all you got to do is make your putts. He loves golf metaphors. And I said, this is like Arnold Palmer. You just will this thing. We'll win this if you. It was a week out, and I talked to him about Romney because Romney was ahead 8 days out, and he blew the race, and Obama beat him by 4. So a lot can change. But I said to him, I said, you know, we've got to focus and do what we need to do to win this race. And he says, I'm not Mitt Romney. So that was.
Yeah, it's great.